My husband keeps inviting his family and friends over without warning me until the day of, then expects me to clean, shop, and cook everything in 4 hours while his judgmental family comes over. So I finally left the house, and he had to cancel. But now he's sulking and calling me difficult, even though I've told him I just need a couple days' notice to get things ready. Let me tell you about the moment I realised I had become nothing more than an unpaid event planner and personal chef in my own home. It started 3 years ago when we first got married. Back then, I thought it was sweet that my husband David wanted to share our new home with the people he loved. I was excited to be the hostess, to create warm memories and show off our little nest. I imagined cosy dinners where everyone would compliment my cooking and tell David how lucky he was to have such a wonderful wife. Those first few gatherings were actually fun. David would give me a week's notice and I would plan everything perfectly. I'd make grocery lists, clean the house from top to bottom, and spend hours in the kitchen preparing elaborate meals. I took pride in setting a beautiful table, making sure everyone felt welcome, and creating the kind of atmosphere that makes people want to stay late and laugh until their cheeks hurt. But somewhere along the way, something changed. The notice got shorter and shorter. Instead of a week, it became 3 days, then 2 days, then the morning of. And now, more often than not, I get a text message at noon saying his mum and dad are coming for dinner at 6, or his college buddies are stopping by for drinks at 7. At first, I thought it was just poor planning on his part. Maybe he was spontaneous. Maybe he just got excited about seeing his family and forgot to think about the logistics. So I would drop everything, race to the grocery store, and somehow pull together a meal that looked like I'd been planning it for days. I became a master at the 4-hour dinner party. I could clean a house, shop for ingredients, and cook a 3-course meal faster than most people could decide what to order for takeout. I learned which recipes could be made quickly but still looked impressive. I figured out how to make our tiny living room feel spacious and welcoming, even when it was packed with people. But the more I did it, the more exhausted I became. Not just physically, though running around like a crazy person for 4 hours straight definitely takes its toll. I was emotionally drained from the constant pressure of having to be perfect on no notice. I was frustrated that my weekends were constantly hijacked by last-minute hosting duties. I was resentful that David seemed to think entertaining was as easy as snapping his fingers. The worst part was his family. Don't get me wrong, they're not terrible people. But they're the kind of family where everyone has opinions about everything and they're not shy about sharing them. His mother notices every speck of dust, every mismatched napkin, every time the meal comes out even slightly overcooked. His sister always has something to say about how I could have done things differently. His father makes jokes about how David better keep me in line or I'll stop cooking for him. They judge each other constantly, so of course they judge me too. I've heard them talking about other family members' wives, picking apart everything from their housekeeping to their career choices to their parenting styles. I know that the second I slip up, the second I serve a meal that isn't perfect, or forget to vacuum under the couch, I'll become the subject of their whispered conversations. David always brushes off my concerns about his family's judgment. He says things like, "It doesn't matter, they don't care," or "You're being too sensitive," or "They're just trying to be helpful." But I know he's lying, and he knows I know he's lying. He's heard the same conversations I have. He's seen the way they roll their eyes when they think no one is looking. He knows exactly how critical they can be. The thing is, if I had advance notice, I could handle all of this. I could plan a menu that would impress them, clean the house thoroughly and mentally prepare myself for their commentary. I could stock up on the ingredients I need, make sure we have enough chairs for everyone, and create the kind of flawless evening that would give them nothing to criticize. But when David springs these gatherings on me with no warning, I'm set up to fail. We never have enough food in the house for entertaining because we usually just cook for two. Our pantry is stocked with the basics, not the ingredients for impressive meals. Our bar cart is usually empty because we don't drink much at home. Even our cleaning supplies run low because we're not expecting company. So when David announces that people are coming over in a few hours, I have to perform miracles. I have to figure out what to cook based on whatever random ingredients we have, plus whatever I can grab during a frantic trip to the grocery store. I have to clean the house while dinner is cooking, which means everything is rushed and nothing gets the attention it deserves. The stress is overwhelming. I spend those 4 hours in a constant state of panic, trying to calculate cooking times and grocery store trips and cleaning schedules. I'm checking my phone every few minutes to see how much time I have left. I'm making mental lists of everything I need to do, and constantly worrying that I'm forgetting something important. And through it all, David is usually just sitting on the couch, watching television or scrolling through his phone, acting like this is all perfectly normal. He doesn't offer to help with the grocery shopping, or the cleaning, or the cooking. He doesn't seem to understand that what he's asking me to do is actually really difficult. He just expects it to magically happen. I've tried talking to him about this so many times. I've explained that I need more notice to properly prepare for guests. I've told him that the constant last-minute entertaining is stressing me out and making me dread having people over. I've asked him to please just give me a couple days' warning so I can plan properly. But every time I bring it up, he acts like I'm being unreasonable. He says I'm being difficult and uptight. He tells me I need to learn to go with the flow and stop being so controlling. He makes me feel like I'm the problem, like I'm the one who's making this harder than it needs to be. The truth is, I love entertaining. I love having people over and creating memorable evenings. But I hate being ambushed. I hate feeling like I'm constantly being tested and judged. I hate the way David dismisses my concerns and acts like I'm being dramatic. 3 weeks ago, I decided I had had enough. It was a Saturday morning and I was looking forward to a quiet weekend. I had plans to do some reading, maybe take a long bath and just relax. David was playing video games in the living room and everything felt peaceful and normal. Then at noon, he casually mentioned that his parents and his sister were coming over for dinner. Not, would it be okay if, or do you think we could have, but just a statement of fact. They were coming over at 6 o'clock and he had already told them yes. I felt that familiar surge of panic and frustration. It was noon on Saturday, which meant I had 6 hours to pull together a dinner party for 5 people. 6 hours might sound like a lot, but when you factor in grocery shopping, cleaning and cooking time, it's really not that much. I asked him what he was planning to serve them and he just shrugged. He said he figured I would come up with something. I asked him if he had checked to see what we had in the house and he said no. I asked him if he had thought about what we would need to buy and he said he assumed I would handle it. That's when something inside me snapped. I realized that David didn't see me as his partner in this. He saw me as his personal event coordinator, someone whose job it was to make his spontaneous social plans work out perfectly. He didn't think about the logistics because he knew I would handle them. He didn't worry about the stress because it wasn't his stress to carry. I looked at him sitting there on the couch, controller in his hand, completely relaxed, while I was already starting to feel overwhelmed. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to do it this time. I wasn't going to drop everything and scramble to create a perfect evening for people who would probably find something to criticize anyway. I told David that I wouldn't be there for dinner. I said I had other plans and couldn't help with the entertaining. He looked at me like I had lost my mind. He asked what other plans I could possibly have that were more important than his family. I didn't have other plans, of course, but I decided I was going to make some. I was going to take myself out for the afternoon and evening, and David could figure out how to host his family without me. He started getting agitated. He said this was ridiculous, that I was being selfish and making a big deal out of nothing. He said his family was expecting to see me and that I was embarrassing him by not being there. He said I was being a bad wife. But I stood my ground. I told him that if he wanted to have people over, he needed to give me proper notice so we could plan together. I told him that I wasn't going to keep dropping everything to accommodate his last-minute invitations. I told him that if he wanted to host his family that evening, He was welcome to do it, but he would have to handle all the preparations himself. Then I went upstairs, got dressed and left the house. I drove to the mall and spent the afternoon walking around, looking at things I didn't need, just enjoying the fact that I wasn't frantically preparing for a dinner party. I got my nails done, something I hadn't had time for in months, because my weekends were always hijacked by hosting duties. Around 4 o'clock, David started texting me. At first, the messages were angry. He said I was being childish and that I needed to come home and help him. He said he didn't know what to cook or how to prepare for guests. He said I was putting him in an impossible position. But as the afternoon went on, his tone changed. He started asking practical questions. What should he serve for dinner? Where did we keep the good plates? How was he supposed to clean the house and cook at the same time? I didn't respond to any of his messages. I wanted him to figure it out for himself, to understand exactly how much work went into the entertaining that he took for granted. I wanted him to feel the stress and panic that I felt every time he sprung guests on me with no warning. Around 5:30, he called me. He sounded defeated. He said he had called his parents and told them that dinner was cancelled. He said he had realised that he couldn't pull everything together in time and that it wouldn't be fair to have them over when he wasn't prepared. I felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction because he had finally understood how difficult it was to host people on short notice. Sadness because this was what it had taken for him to realise what he had been putting me through. When I got home around 8 o'clock, David was sitting on the couch, looking sulky and defeated. The house was exactly as I had left it, which meant he hadn't even attempted to clean or prepare anything. He had just given up immediately when faced with the reality of what hosting actually involved. I asked him what he had been planning to serve for dinner, and he said he didn't know. He said he guessed it was good that his family wasn't coming over anymore. That's when I realised that he had never actually thought about the practical aspects of entertaining. He had just assumed that food would magically appear, that the house would somehow be clean, and that everything would work out perfectly. Since then, David has been sulking. He says I embarrassed him in front of his family. He says I'm the problem because I can't go with the flow. He says I'm being difficult and uptight and uncooperative. He makes it sound like I'm the one who's being unreasonable, like I'm the one who's making our marriage harder than it needs to be. But I don't feel unreasonable. I feel like I finally stood up for myself. I feel like I finally said no to being taken advantage of. I feel like I finally showed David what it's really like to be responsible for hosting people with no advance notice. The thing is, I've told him so many times that I just need a couple days' notice to get things in order. I've explained that entertaining isn't as simple as he thinks it is. I've asked him to please consider my perspective and work with me to make hosting more manageable. But he insists that I'm just being difficult. He acts like asking for 2 days' notice is some kind of unreasonable demand. He makes me feel like I'm being high maintenance and controlling, when all I want is the courtesy of being included in decisions that affect me. I've started to realize that this isn't really about entertaining at all. It's about respect. It's about David seeing me as his partner rather than his personal assistant. It's about him understanding that my time and energy are valuable and that I deserve to be consulted before he makes plans that involve me. When David invites people over without telling me, he's essentially volunteering my time and labor without asking my permission. He's assuming that I have nothing better to do than drop everything and serve his family and friends. He's treating me like my schedule and my preferences don't matter. And when I object to this treatment, he acts like I'm being unreasonable. He turns it around and makes me the villain. He says I'm being difficult instead of acknowledging This pattern has started to affect other areas of our marriage too. David has gotten into the habit of making decisions without consulting me and then expecting me to just go along with whatever he's decided. He'll commit us to social events without asking if I'm available. He'll make plans that involve me without checking if I'm interested. He'll volunteer me for things without asking if I have the time or energy. And when I push back, he always says the same thing. I'm being difficult. I'm being uptight. I need to learn to go with the flow. It's like he's decided that being a good wife means never having opinions or preferences of my own. But I'm starting to understand that going with the flow doesn't mean letting someone else control the current. It doesn't mean giving up my right to have input in decisions that affect me. It doesn't mean sacrificing my own needs and wants for the sake of keeping the peace. I've been thinking a lot about the kind of marriage I want to have. I want a partnership where both people's opinions matter. I want a relationship where decisions are made together, where both people's schedules and preferences are considered. I want a marriage where I'm seen as an equal partner, not as someone whose job it is to make everyone else's life easier. The dinner party incident has become a symbol of something much bigger. It's not really about whether I can pull together a meal in 4 hours. It's about whether David sees me as his partner or his employee. It's about whether he values my time and energy or just takes them for granted. I know that some people might think I overreacted. They might say that hosting unexpected guests is just part of being married, that I should be more flexible and accommodating. They might say that family is important and that I should be willing to make sacrifices for David's relationships. But I don't think wanting basic consideration is asking too much. I don't think requesting a couple of days' notice is being high maintenance. I don't think standing up for myself is being difficult. I think it's about setting boundaries and demanding respect. I think it's about refusing to be taken advantage of, even by someone I love. I think it's about recognizing my own worth and insisting that others recognize it too. The truth is, I still love entertaining. I still enjoy having David's family and friends over, but I want to do it as his partner, not as his servant. I want to be consulted about plans that involve me. I want to have input in decisions that affect my time and energy. I want David to see me as someone whose opinions and preferences matter, not as someone whose job it is to make his spontaneous social plans work out perfectly. I want him to understand that being a good wife doesn't mean being endlessly accommodating and never having needs of my own. Most of all, I want him to stop calling me difficult when I ask for basic consideration. I want him to stop making me feel like I'm being unreasonable when I stand up for myself. I want him to take responsibility for his own behavior instead of always focusing on my reaction to it. I don't know if David will ever understand this. He seems genuinely confused by my position, like he can't comprehend why I would object to his way of doing things. He acts like I'm creating problems where none existed before. But problems did exist before. I was just handling them silently, absorbing the stress and frustration without complaining. I was making his thoughtless behavior work by sacrificing my own comfort and convenience. I was enabling his inconsideration by always rising to meet his unreasonable expectations. Now that I've stopped doing that, the problems are visible. Now that I'm no longer willing to perform miracles on demand, David has to confront the reality of what he's been asking me to do. Now that I'm standing up for myself, he has to decide whether he wants to work with me or against me. I hope he chooses to work with me. I hope he realizes that our marriage will be stronger if we make decisions together, instead of him making them unilaterally. I hope he understands that respecting my time and energy is part of respecting me as a person. But if he doesn't, if he continues to see me as difficult and uptight and uncooperative, then I'll have to decide what that means for our future. Because I'm not going back to being his unpaid event planner. I'm not going back to dropping everything whenever he snaps his fingers. I've learned that I'm stronger than I thought I was. I've learned that I can say no, even when it's uncomfortable. I've learned that standing up for myself doesn't make me difficult. It makes me human, and that's a lesson I plan to keep applying, whether David likes it or not.